Morning of January 6, an agent of the defendant contacted the United States Senator to ask him to hand deliver documents to the Vice President. The agent then facilitated the receipt by the Senator staff of the fraudulent certificates signed by defendant fraudulent electors in Michigan and Wisconsin, which were believed not to have been delivered to the Vice President or archivist by mail when one of the senator's staffers contacted a staffer for the vice president by text message to arrange for delivery of what the senator's staffers had been told were alternative slates of electors for Michigan and Wisconsin. Because archivists did receive them, the vice president's staffers rejected them. At 11:15 a.m., the defendant called the vice president and again pressured him to fraudulently reject or return by legitimate electoral votes. The vice president again refused. Immediately after the call, the defendant decided to single out the vice president in public remarks he would make within the hour, reiterating language that he had personally drafted earlier that morning, falsely claiming that the vice president had authority to send electoral votes to the state, but that advisors had previously successfully advocated be removed. Earlier that morning, the defendant had selected co-conspirator 2 to join co-conspirator 1 in giving public remarks before his own when they did so based on knowingly false election fraud claims. Co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 intensified pressure on the vice president to fraudulently obstruct the certification proceedings. Co-conspirator 1 told the crowd that the vice president could cast the ECA aside and unilaterally decide on the validity of those crooked ballots. He also lied when he claimed to have letters from 5 legislators begging us to send electors' slates to the legislators for review and called for trial by combat. Co-conspirator 2 told crowds, "All we are demanding of Vice President Pence is this afternoon at 1 o'clock. He let the legislators of the states look into this so we get to the bottom of it and the American people know whether we have control of the direction of our government or not. We no longer live in a self-governed republic if we can't get the answers to this question." Beginning at 11:56 a.m., defendant made multiple knowingly false statements integral to his criminal plan to defeat the federal government functions, obstruct the certification, and interfere with other rights to vote and have their votes counted. The defendant repeated false claims of election fraud, giving false hopes that the vice president might change the election outcome, and directed the crowd in front of him to go to the Capitol as a means to obstruct the certification of and pressure the vice president to fraudulently obstruct the certification. The defendant knowingly false statements for those purposes included. The defendant falsely claimed that based on fraud, the vice president could alter the outcome of the election results, stating, "I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All he has to do, all this is from the number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We support it. We supposed to protect our country, support our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to revoke. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states, recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people. After the defendant falsely stated that the Pennsylvania legislators wanted to recertify votes, they want to recertify, but the only way they can happen is if Mike Pence agreed to send it back. The crowd began to chant, "Send it back." The defendant also said that regular rules no longer apply, stating, "And FAR breaks up everything, doesn't it? When you catch somebody in a fraud, you allowed to go by very different rules." Finally, after exhorting that we fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. The defendant directed the people in front of him to head to the Capitol, suggested he was going with them, and told them to give members of Congress the kind of pride and boldness that they needed to take back our country. During and after the defendant remarks, thousands of people marched towards the Capitol. Defendant expectations of the violence and chaos at the Capitol. Shortly before 1 p.m., the Vice President issued a public statement explaining that his role as President of the Senate at the certification proceedings that was about to begin did not include unilaterally authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not. Before the defendant had finished speaking, a crowd began to gather at the Capitol. Thereafter, a mass of people, including individuals who had traveled to Washington and to the Capitol at the defendant's direction, broke through barriers corridors off the Capitol grounds and advanced on the building, including by violently attacking law enforcement officers trying to secure it. The defendant, who had returned to the White House after concluding his remarks, watched events at the Capitol unfold on the television in the dining room next to the Oval Office. At 2:13 p.m., after more than at 2:13 p.m. after more than an hour of steady violent advancements, the crowd at the Capitol broke into the building. Upon receiving news that the individuals had breached the Capitol, the defendant advisors told him that there was a riot there and that the rioters had breached the building. When advisors urged the defendant to issue a claiming message aimed at the rioters, the defendant refused, instead repeatedly remarking that the people at the Capitol were angry because the election had been stolen. At 2:24 p.m., after advisors had left the defendant alone in his dining room, the defendant issued a tweet intended to further delay the obstruct the certification. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or incorrect ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demand the truth. 1 minute later, at 2:25 p.m., the United States Secret Service was forced to evacuate the vice president to a secure location. At the Capitol throughout the afternoon, members of the crowd chanted, "Hang Mike Pence! Where is Mike Pence? Where is Pence? Bring him out!" And "Traitor Pence." The defendant repeatedly refused to approve a message directed rioters to leave the Capitol. As urged by most senior advisors, including the White House counsel, a deputy White House counsel, the chief of staff, a deputy chief of staff, and a senior advisor. Instead, the defendant issued two tweets that did not ask rioters to leave the Capitol, but instead falsely suggested that the crowd at the Capitol was being peaceful, including at 2:38 p.m. Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. At 3:13 p.m., I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Repeat, respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. At 3 p.m. The defendant had phone calls with the minority leader of the United States House of Representatives. The defendant told the minority leader that the crowd at the Capitol were more upset about the election than the minority leader was. At 4:17 p.m., the defendant released a video message on Twitter he had just taped in the White House Rose Garden.